What is up, everybody? Welcome in to the Carbonite Crew Show. We're joined by a very special guest today.
The
We
Elliott
sure
Delp.
are. Welcome, Elliott.
The
I was thinking
Elliott
about it. The Elliott Delp. He's kind of famous. So does that make us the guests here, even though it's technically our show?
No, it's so much cooler that I'm here. Carbonite, Carbonite, that's the coolest name I've ever heard for a podcast. And like all my content is so like off base for like my nerdum that it's not even funny.
It's so
What
true.
content I do, you'd be like, what?
Like this guy.
If I
what?
told anybody, yeah, like I'm a gun guy, but then you come to my basement and there's like totes of Star Wars figures.
Well, there's
Like,
plenty.
what's wrong?
There's plenty of guns. They just happen to be like really little and in action figure hands.
So like the amount of like guns I have compared to my Star Wars figures is just. I appreciate you guys having me. I look forward to talking about Star Wars, Andor, and other things.
We're excited to have you. Glad it finally worked out.
Hey, to be fair, it's a nice transition kind of just into Andor itself, because there's that one scene, I don't remember what episode it's in, but they like modified an AK-47 and just made it into a blaster, which that was weird.
Something like that reminded me. I don't know how much you guys are into like Halo, but they brought AKs and stuff into the Halo universe, which in theory, like Halo's timeline, there's AKs way back in the past, but it's just so off to Halo, and then they do it in Star Wars, and you look at it and you're like, that's a freaking AK. What do you mean?
Exactly.
Well, I didn't notice, but it makes sense that you would.
We'll show you a picture later, Steven, and you will notice, and you'll be like, all right, that's just it.
Oh my gosh.
It's like the Russians should have like copywritten the episode at that point. So.
Right. You talk about taking yourself out of a series, like that moment or an episode, that can do it for sure. I think that was early in the season. That was like 2 or 3. It was pretty early on.
Part of the reason we brought you on is because I was like, well, Tyler and I both, I think, are fairly positive on it. We liked it overall.
Right.
Elliott, on the other hand, really didn't. So I think it'll make a good contrast for the episode.
Saying I didn't like it would be not fair.
Okay.
Saying I have some I wouldn't even say problems. I wouldn't even say problems with it.
Okay.
Anyway, go on. You guys.
Yeah. I'll start us off. All right. So I think Tyler and I were thinking we could start off with a little bit of a rating. We'll say, what would I rate the show, 1 to 10? I think that's a good way to start this off. And I think I would give this one like a 6.5. I feel like it's above the middle line. Like it was better than just average, but I think it was kind of like highs and lows for me, where some of it I was just really just trying to like drudge through it because I knew I was going to have to talk about it on a podcast at some point. And then some of it I actually enjoyed watching, and I thought was really interesting. So it's funny because it splits really well. I feel like the story of the show does, where you kind of have like the first phase where it's the heist story, where he gets recruited into a group and they go and steal those. It's payroll, right? So it's money. Credits. Yeah. Okay. That's like phase 1. And then phase 2 is he gets sent to prison, gets locked away, and has to figure out how to get out, right? Real quick thought here. I know neither of you guys have read any Brandon Sanderson books, so it's not going to really hit for either of you, but maybe somewhere somebody out there will hear me. I feel like the writers of this show were big Brandon Sanderson fans, because the first half of this show is just the plot from the Mistborn series, which is like his earlier, really big, really popular series, where it's just like, it's a heist. He gets recruited, he has to go in there, do the thing, and get out. And then the second half is just the plot from The Way of Kings, which is the first book in his Stormlight Archive series, which is big one right here. That big guy. My big leather my big leather bound copy. Maybe that's also what she said. But anyway, so the plot from that is guy gets locked up for no reason, ends up joining a band of fellow misfits, and they accomplish some breakout task to get out of the evil people's grips, right? So I thought that was kind of funny. I think the first half for me was kind of I just felt super, super slow. I remember, Tyler, we recorded after those first 3 episodes dropped, and we kind of, where it was this like really, I thought it was fairly interesting the way they did it. They did his backstory, and he's like got all these questions about how his growing up, and we don't really know what all the things are. We talk about a sister that he's looking for. And then it feels like,
Yeah.
right? Exactly. It feels like all of that just like ended and didn't matter again for the rest of the series. And I was just so confused. And then the heist stuff, like, it was fine. Some of it was okay, but it was just so slow. And I think where I was at in the first half is I was just having trouble caring about it. Like, I was sitting there, I was like, why do I care about this plot? Because I know what happens with these characters. I know what happens down the line in Star Wars as a whole, right? Like, there's no surprises here. I know he's going to make it out. Where are the stakes? Yada, yada, yada. So the first half, I was pretty down on it. But then the second half, I actually thought was much better. So I thought the prison, like, a lot of that was really interesting. And I thought it was kind of cool. A part of it is probably just Andy Serkis. He was phenomenal. He was awesome. So I thought that was super interesting. And then all of the stuff happening with Luthen, kind of as we're going through that, I found his character to be my favorite part of the show, without a doubt. He was very, very interesting, I felt like. So that's kind of where I landed on it. Some of it was just, I think the biggest issue, I think, was just the pacing, though. The speed that show moved was just kind of brutal at points, where it's just like, what are we doing here? Let's get it going.
The whole heist part where they're getting ready to steal the payroll, I thought that dragged on probably an episode too long. It almost felt like the Deathly Hallows Part 1, the film, where it just kind of like you're walking around, like there's a lot of exposition, which I think we did learn a lot of good stuff in there, but you could have thrown that stuff in somewhere else. It almost felt like 2 seasons in one, and it's weird. And I'm really bothered now that you brought up his sister and his childhood, because I really like that stuff. And yeah, there's no payoff. Like, we just kind of like leave it. I assume we're coming back to it.
I don't know that I can like just assume anymore with some of the Star Wars stuff, man.
I was gonna give it a 7.5. But then I hear Steven's voice in my head saying, I was really positive and gives good ratings. And then you hit me with the whole like sister plot line. Now I'm bothered.
Okay, so are these ratings based on Star Wars franchise or just overall good television?
Just like
somewhere in between those two. Yeah, a little bit of both.
Me looking at this as like a Star Wars series, out of the television and movies, it's not high up there for me. I will never rewatch this. Ever in my life. I would rate it lower in comparison to the franchise as a whole. If I'm giving it like a franchise rating, I would probably say it's like a 3.
Okay. Yeah.
Or the whole entire thing was more of a visual type of television show. It was more, I don't know, I don't feel like very much happened in the whole entire like 12 episodes. I feel like it was more like, ooh, look at this. I thought stuff was prettier. The actors and stuff were showing off massive landscapes, like when they were on the planet they were going to steal the credits from. They made a big showing of the stars, and they made like there were huge drone shots of landscapes, and I felt like that was a big thing throughout the whole entire series. I agree with you, Steven. Luthen, he was my favorite character in the whole thing. I have a real big problem with Star Wars giving you backstories and giving you content on people that you know everything about and you know how it's going to end. Andor was one of those things where it's like, who asked for this?
No one.
Nobody.
I didn't even remember who he was from Rogue One until, and I felt like Luthen had mystery behind him. I still don't really know who he is.
I love that.
And every time anything like the most interesting part was looking at all the Easter eggs in his shop, man. I mean, that was for me. I was like, what are we going to see this week? I thought it was a good Star Wars series in the fact that it didn't screw anything up. Nothing bad happened.
That's fair. That's a really fair point.
Disney did a perfect job at just making content. I didn't feel like anything happened throughout the whole entire series that changed Star Wars. I don't know if it did for you. Like, there was no crazy, like, whoa, that happened. There was no like crazy Easter egg. Well, there was some crazy Easter eggs, but nothing like
impactful. I think the only thing that I come out of it and I'm like, I feel differently about, and Tyler, you sent me something about it the other day. Essentially what we saw is the little people side of the rebellion, kind of, where it's like, this is why they are fighting. This is why they needed to go against the Empire because of the like cruelness, the evil, some of the like evil things that were happening, not just to like the big major people, but it's people like Andor. They didn't know who he was. They just picked him up off the street because he looked like he could, I don't know, build some X thingies. And they threw him in prison and made him, you know, like a slave just for the fun of it, right?
He was looking sketch when he got caught.
A little bit sketch, but like I would be terrified there too.
Andor looked sketchy the whole entire time. It was like he was on like spazzing the whole time. Like, chill, dude. The whole 12 episodes. He was on vacation. You know, I mean,
coked out like that bear in that movie you just sent me the other day.
I appreciate all Star Wars content. I enjoy getting all Star Wars content, but it was too slow for me. It was too uneventful, and it was too much of the same stuff we've been getting for the last 10 years. But I'm tired of Rebellion. I'm tired of hearing about the Rebellion. I'm tired of the original Rebellion, and I'm tired of the one right before the First Order. I could care less. Like, Mando's my thing just because he doesn't complain about the Empire. You know, I mean,
they're gone at that point. So, there's nothing to complain about. So, what's your overall rating of the show? Are you at a 3?
Yeah, I'm at a 3.
Okay. Yeah,
because I think there's so much better content out. Because like Mando's better, Boba's not better, but
Boba was just just bad. So I was thinking about okay. The only thing
that's the problem. He wasn't bad. He should have been. That's the problem.
Well, that's but that was Boba got screwed up. They screwed up something in Boba. They didn't screw up anything in it was boring. Mando's better. The Clone Wars series is better by like millions of stars. Thinking about it now, I don't really like Rebels because it's too childish for me. Okay,
peace. We'll see you later.
That, Steven.
Like Rebels. Okay. You can stay on this.
I understand it's very much made for children.
Me.
Because like it's a little far. I mean, I guess
because they talk about the Rebellion.
It is made for kids. And that too.
But like Rebels was like the first time they did it, and so it didn't feel as like worn out by then.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good point.
Yeah, but Rebels came out on Disney.
It was like that Disney XD.
Was that like the?
I don't even know if that's.
Oh, that's right. That's what it was. Yep.
In my defense, I never watched it when I was younger. And then like I've tried to watch it since then. I've tried to like get into it. I just can't. I know the backstory of it and the concept's great, but I just can't get through watching it.
I can,
that's fair.
Actually, thinking about it, there's a lot of bad Star Wars content out there, so I'd probably raise it a 4.5 because like the sequel trilogy, there's a whole trilogy that's just horrible. You know.
There's three movies that I would not want to watch more than I would want to watch this.
3 movies that I haven't seen since I watched them in theaters. So Andor's better than those, and Andor's better than Boba, and so I guess I raised it. I put it a little too low, so I'll raise it up. I'll do like a 4.5.
Okay, that's fair.
As an overall,
it's at least like a quality show. It looked good. The story was not bad. I think the story was fine. It was just the pacing they told that story at was a little rough. But
if somebody asked me whether or not they should watch Andor, I would tell them yes, but I wouldn't put it at the top of the list to get done today.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I will say one thing that really bothers me is there's a line in Rogue One where Andor, I think he says it to Jyn, where he says, "I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old." Been on like one of like our favorite lines with me and Jonathan and Daniel. And that show just completely retcons that because even if you go back to his childhood,
I didn't think about
he was
that.
What, 10, right? Unless like so that just completely goes out the window.
You're harping on
the Disney. We're here to constructively criticize Andor season 1, and I'm gonna criticize. That's important to me.
Constructively.
He says that with such conviction, and if that's not true, that means he lied to her while trying to make a point that he's on her side and gaining her trust.
You got to do sometimes, homie. I mean, they're trying to
look at Luthen. Look what he did. That's worse. That's worse. Yeah, that's worse than a little fib.
Luthen's gonna do something wild in season 2.
I think so too.
Like he's gonna kill someone.
because
Talk
he's
about
not
Luthen
in
a whole lot.
Rogue One. Let's talk Luthen for a second because we all agree that he is super interesting. But Elliot, there is a scene in one of the later episodes where Luthen's double agent, that guy that is a part of the ISB, he's in the Empire, he's been trained and brought up
Call him
and made a
Andor.
part
I
of
feel like his
this,
name is.
comes to talk to Luthen to try to get out of the rebellion. And I think that scene is my favorite in the entire show. It's the scene where he is in the elevator talking to Luthen like through the speaker. And I just thought the camera work where like everything is shaking, the lights are flashing on and off, and just the dialogue between the two was super cool. And just the intensity of it all, where Luthen's just like, yeah, no, you can't get out. Like that's not an option. And you just kind of felt the heaviness of it. I thought that was my favorite part of the whole show.
What was resonating for me, it was when Luthen started talking about what he'd given.
Yeah.
You know?
Mhm.
He was basically like, this is my life. This is it. I give up everything and will die doing this. Like, regardless of whether or not they win, he's like, I will die doing this.
He says
like,
the line twice in the series, and I think he says it in this scene that you're talking about too, Steven, but he says the line, I'm devoting my life or dedicating my life for a sunrise that I know I'll never see. And I just think that's one of the most powerful. The fact that they put it in there twice, I mean, even they knew. They're like, oh, this line is gold. Let's throw it in there again. But I think
make sure beautiful. They don't miss it.
I'm just going to assume he's talking about the blowing up of the Death Star in reality, both 1 and 2. Maybe that's why he said it twice, because the Death Star blows up twice. Ooh, meta.
There you go.
There you go.
Nah,
dude, that's what we live.
You might be overthinking
it. We are here to
They probably just forgot they already used it. They found it scribbled on a napkin somewhere. They're like, oh, this is a good line. But they'd already said it 3 months ago in filming. Yeah.
Maybe Stellan Skarsgård just loved it that much. He just ad-libbed it in that scene.
What a cool name, man. Stellan Skarsgård.
Elliot, you did put into perspective like the whole rating system for a second. Like, it's kind of blowing my mind. When you think about Star Wars as a whole, I'm like, man, 7.5, 7 seems like a really high rating now.
Think what you're putting it above. Like, what is, if you have 1 to 10 for all the Star Wars, think of what that 7.5 you are
That's
putting.
fair.
Per movie.
Yeah.
You're gonna mess up my whole rating system for everything.
Let me ask you, would you put it like, would you say it's close to Empire Strikes Back?
No. I think here's what I would say. The only things worse than it are the sequel movies, Boba Fett.
Okay. So you can make arguments for the sequel movies.
Boba Fett.
I've never finished Bad Batch, so I think I'll throw that in there.
You gotta throw. No, you need to finish Bad Batch then.
No.
Maybe I'm the problem here.
Yeah. It's a bad.
Taylor Swift is right.
Bad Batch had good and bad episodes. The half of Bad Batch.
Is it the second half that's good? Because the first I just could not do.
So just tune in halfway through the seasons.
Oh man, I couldn't take the like recycled Grogu plot line. Oh, that's driving me a little crazy.
What are you talking about, dude? Omega? No, dude, don't ever crap on Omega.
I'll crap on Omega. I'll do
it's
it.
Just Grogu.
Elliot, give me a list of stuff you like in Star Wars. We'll start there.
I like it when Mando doesn't have to babysit. I like
that's fair.
When Anakin kills the younglings.
I like when Anakin killed the younglings. He says, "We all like Tales of the Jedi."
Of everything. We're getting a clear picture of it. I like when he doesn't babysit kids. I like when the kids get just killed.
Oh man. Crime. No, okay. I still not like in Star Wars. I like all the prequels.
Good answer.
All the prequels are fantastic. They I think their hate is somewhat justified, but not completely. And I like the Clone Wars a lot. Of course, I was also molded around the Clone Wars because that was like 9 or 10, 11 when that stuff was coming out, and just like right on the head. Season 1, episode 5 was like my favorite forever and ever. Do you guys even know which one that is?
I don't know, like specific one.
It was one where we meet all those people. We met all the.
Okay.
So, do you like Ahsoka Tano? I feel like that's an important question.
Oh yeah, you're anti-Ahsoka.
I'm anti-Ahsoka. But
it's a hot take. That's a hot.
It's
take.
more like a love-hate.
Mm-hmm. You're like the only one.
She can be annoying.
You know what it is? It's because she's a kid,
and she can be beneficial. No, it has.
It's because you haven't watched Rebels. That's what it is.
Honestly, yes. That's where she comes like into her own.
Yeah, maybe so.
We'll she's.
We'll see how.
Oh yeah, I'm pumped for that.
I don't think you can watch a series without watching Rebels, though. I think you do have to watch the Ahsoka stuff.
But I know what happens in Rebels. Like I understand, like the world or whatever the hell it is.
No.
It's kind of just like.
Oh
man.
Oh man.
Do you guys think that they're just retconning the sequel trilogy?
I think they just kind of ignore it.
Yeah, so like a soft retcon, like here, let's just while the sequel trilogy is happening, we're just going to do stuff in different parts of the galaxy.
I think they're going to build stuff around it to try to enhance it. Like I truly think that's the end game.
I think they've already tried to do that. It's like they're like, oh crap, we missed a lot of stuff in that. Let's try to go back and fix it all now. Who is Snoke? Hard. What happened? How did Palpatine come back? All of this stuff.
Somehow, dude.
Yeah, but
doesn't matter.
What? But Snoke, all that stuff doesn't matter. Is the problem.
I agree. I think you just forget it happened. We just accept that they were bad movies and we move on to something else. But that's not what's going to happen. How does every episode turn into us bashing on the sequel trilogy?
Somehow we're bashing the sequel trilogy again.
I wake up in the morning and I'm just like, you know what? I hate this.
I start every morning.
That's your motivation to like go to the gym. It's like gotta pump off all this anger.
No, it's to look like I'm with the shirt off. I mean,
that's fair.
Totally fair. Oh my goodness.
Now, what is your favorite Star Wars project?
My favorite Star Wars content is probably the Republic Commandos video game. That's what made me love Star Wars.
I like that.
When I was young.
Good answer.
First of all, I love clones. Like I love the whole thing. I have 1,000 different clone characters. And if we're talking like all Star Wars content, being able to be like a clone commando, and that was just great. If we're talking like visual content, like movies and stuff like that, you know, at one point in my life, I would have told you like episode 2.
You love me.
Like that was the first one I saw in theaters. Or episode 1, because for the longest time I wanted to be Obi-Wan Kenobi with his little like thingy, ponytail looking.
That would probably fit here in Southwest Virginia.
I guess refined my taste. I really like I understand why so many people like The Empire Strikes Back. That's probably like one of my like top like visual content, like movie content is probably The Empire Strikes Back, followed by like any of the prequel movies. Really, I think episode 3 is overhyped. I could go all day. We could talk about anything pop culture, you want. Man.
We're here for everything.
What?
Except Game of Thrones, because none of us have watched it.
Did y'all watch
the Lord of the Rings show?
Oh no, I watched the first.
You haven't finished it yet,
and I really liked it, but I haven't finished it.
Did you like it, Elliot?
So, in terms of like content for Lord of the Rings, where there's only been 6 pieces of total content ever made for Lord of the Rings, it is way
that's fair.
Horrible Hobbit movies. It's above a 5. I recommend you watch. They could really do something with it if they don't like. So a lot of hardcore Lord of the Rings fans are like, they're hating on it because of political reasons or whatever they may have about it. I think that tainted it before it came out so much. It might have had a negative impact on it definitely had a negative impact on the community. It did stray from a lot of Tolkien stuff. If you are not a super, super hardcore Lord of the Rings person, you would be okay with it. If you were like a moderate Lord of the Rings fan, you'd be more like, oh my gosh, they're making Lord of the Rings content. Same. It's close to Tolkien stuff, but it's not Tolkien stuff. But it's close enough to where if you weren't super in depth,
and I'm not that.
You'd be okay with it. Yeah, and so I think it's worth a watch.
Maybe that's what.
I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. It's the reason it took me so long to watch Andor because every time I got to watch TV, if it wasn't a football game, I was watching Rings of Power.
Promise you won't judge me if I tell you this, but I slept probably.
You slept through it?
10:30.
I did fall
Did you ever
asleep a
go
few
back
times.
and rewatch it? Which part did you sleep through?
No.
Oh, it's
I
like,
guess
I
you
don't even know
maybe
who
don't know
Andor
because you were
is.
asleep.
Like the last 3 episodes, I was
Gotcha,
pretty
okay.
like.
That's why he asked what we were covering.
Well, the final episode, all I remember is like the battle scene. There at the end, because that kind of woke me up when the explosions were happening. The officer people ended up together
Oh yeah,
in
that
a
was super
closet.
weird.
That's one of the things I remember.
They were hiding.
Thought that was kind
Right? You're talking about the weird
The
couple
weird
thing going
guy
on
and
there.
the ISB girl.
It was Cyril and
Oh,
Deidre.
Cyril, yeah.
Wait, he was eating cereal the whole time, and his name was Cyril.
I
Cyril? Is that a joke? Is that like, I'm sorry, like, right? It's stupid, I know, but
No, you're totally right. Yep. He was eating, what is
so
it?
many bowls of stupid cereal. This show's at a 5 for me now, dude. I can't. I can't.
It was like blue, like Cocoa Pebbles.
That's because the milk turned the milk. No, I don't know. Blue milk already,
that-
right? He was doing blue milk. We're definitely having you back on for the season 2 discussion.
Yes, absolutely.
Put that in the book.
Because we are getting a season 2, right?
We are.
Like that's
only
already
2 seasons.
already determined. Okay.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot of payoffs. Like think phase 1
I
of
hope
Marvel.
so.
There's a lot of like iffy movies until you like get everything else behind it or after it. It just adds so much, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. And it just makes them that much better, in my opinion.
Here's hoping.
That's my positive outlook on it.
I think one of the reasons I didn't like Andor that much is because it was too realistic to be like. It was
okay.
too
See, I think that's one of its redeeming qualities. And it goes back to kind of what Steven was saying about how like we know what we're fighting for against the Empire and with the rebellion now is it kind of felt like I was experiencing all the pressure they were kind of under. And I felt like I was a part of that, or I was seeing it firsthand, and I was like, I could relate to it. Like I could see that happening, in my city or down the street or in the country. And I just felt, I think I did like that. And then I think the second half was more Star Warsy, I guess, if you will. Maybe that's where the disconnect in the season comes, is it feels like this realistic show and then Star Wars. Maybe that's the problem.
That's a pretty good point too. Yeah,
but I see what you mean. How it would take you out of it though, because Star Wars is it's its own thing.
And when I like my Star Wars, I like it to have a lot of.
I just want a series or a movie that is all a bunch of Jedi and a bunch of Sith fighting. That's all I want in life.
This is just me talking at this point. You know what would be awesome? If they did like a series and they showed. So you know how like Starkiller could just like bring down Star Destroyers, and like you hear about all these like stuff in the Old Republic of these massive feats by the Sith and the Jedi of this massive force power of just being able to, crush tens of 20 of people. I want to see a lore accurate movie of a Jedi or Sith or whatever just using the Force. How it's been.
If they just went to the Old Republic
realms,
if they took the Old Republic stuff, they could make a like Game of Thrones sized show. They could do 8-9 seasons of this huge monumental story where we see all of this crazy stuff. Like maybe it's just really expensive, but like they've got money and it will make more than it will cost without a question. Like
Amazon spent $1 billion on Lord of the Rings.
And this this cost $2 billion, but it will do more than Lord of the Rings did.
All right, this has been a fun episode. Elliott, where can folks find you? And if they want to hear more of your hot takes,
you can find me. Just Google my name, Elliott Delp. I am youtube.com/Elliott Delp. Instagram.
It's 2 L's and 2 T's.
Facebook.com/Elliott Delp. 2 L's and 2 T's. You should.
I don't know if that actually goes. I don't know if that sticks right
there. Just
yes.
If anybody's watching at this point, we appreciate you guys sticking around through the shenanigans, and I do YouTube content. I do basically firearms content where I review guns, body armor. Very off topic from this, but this just shows that people can have more sides than what you see on social media.
Yeah,
if you feel so inclined,
if you want to find him, just click the link down in the bottom.
Link me in the bottom.
Or if you're listening to the podcast, it's still at the bottom. So
you'll click on the link and be like, "Wow, this page is way more professional than the one I was just on."
And I appreciate it. I appreciate being on. I appreciate talking about Star Wars because, like, even in my podcast, which I don't even do hardly anymore, we've kind of slowed down ever since we started cranking out more like videos.
Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you guys are watching. Subscribe to the podcast if you're listening. And go ahead, leave a 5-star review. Leave a like on the video. Anything else, gentlemen? Anything else you want to leave with?
Nope. It's great.
Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. We appreciate it.
See you guys.
Outdoors.
May the force be with you.